Every advanced civilization eventually runs into a wall, not because it lacks intelligence, instead because the universe is living through a long hostile phase. But what if the secret to interstellar survival isn't more power, but more time? What if we could simply opt out of the bad parts in cosmic history? This isn't sci-fi, this comes from the very real physics of relativity. This is how a civilization chooses when to exist. From loom chips to black holes and time towers, a megastructure that uses time dilation to increase the speed of their technological progress. Imagine you're standing on Earth checking your watch. Time ticks steadily. A second is a second. That is simple enough. Or, at least, it's what every human has believed for thousands of years. But physics has a secret. Time is a resource you can buy. The currency is speed. If we accelerate a ship until the moon whizzes by in a single heartbeat, you travel nearly at the speed of light. Once the speed is constant, it feels like floating in 0 G. Just like how Neil Armstrong floated even though the entire spacecraft was traveling at 11 kilometers per second to the moon. But outside your window, the universe has entered a state of fast forward. If you spend 1 hour at near light speeds, observers back on Earth would have experienced days. If this concept was familiar, look back to Interstellar's 7 years per hour.
7 years per hour here.
That sentence is not fiction. It's the theory of relativity. Relativity tells us that a moving clock ticks slower relative to an unmoving observer. The faster you move, the slower your time passes for other people, even if it feels normal to you. A simple equation that describes this is the kinetic time dilation equation. In this equation, it tells us that an increase in velocity causes time to hyperbolically dilate. A cleaner form of this equation is to equate the fraction as gamma, which directly tells us how much time is slowed, without needing to care about the exact velocity to equal a certain gamma value. This gamma is called the Lorentz factor. If the Lorentz factor is equal to 2, which is 86% light speed, then 1 second for you moving takes 2 seconds for someone watching it. Move even faster, then the universe will evolve centuries while you only age days. Motion itself becomes a way to buy the future. Why is stretching time useful? Well, in the future, say if humans have built a colony that is 50 light years away, it takes a century to ask a question and receive an answer. By then, the civilization that asked the question has already evolved, collapsed, or even forgotten why they even sent it. We need to avoid this chaos somehow. The solution is the loom ship. The loom ship acts like a lifeboat, looking for a calmer era of the universe. This ship travels at 99.99% light speed. And at this velocity, the Lorentz factor is gamma equals 70. To the people on both worlds, the trip still takes 50 years, but to the crew on the ship, time is compressed. They only experience 8 months of life while crossing the void of space. The purpose isn't to travel to both worlds. Is to squeeze decades of waiting time into relatively quick waiting times, making communication to appear almost instantaneous for the recipient if the Lorentz factor is high enough, while the rest of the universe ages a century. However, the engineering isn't so straightforward. Suppose the ship targets gamma equals 7, meaning that 1 second in a ship is 7 seconds for everyone else. The fuel required to go up to that speed grows absurdly as you push to a higher velocity. Furthermore, space becomes a firing squad. A pebble that is harmless in the galactic rest frame becomes a major hazard at high velocities. This is the damage a 10-gram speck can do when it travels at 7 kilometers per second. That is 0.002% of the speed of light. That same speck at 90% of the speed of light has the same energetic impact of 19 Hiroshima bombs. And There are thousands of them per cubic kilometer in interstellar space. When the dust hits the spaceship, it initiates fusion with the exterior and instantly vaporizes everything. To keep the Loom ship flying, we have to engineer the most violent defensive structures in existence. Interceptor lasers, magnetic deflectors, and sacrificial shields designed to purposely absorb the impact, then break off. This is the first lesson. Speed is flexible, but the universe is abrasive. Speeding through the universe is most likely too dangerous and expensive. But velocity isn't the only thing that warps time at near light speeds. We need something more permanent. Relativity also says that there is a more permanent way to play with the clocks: gravity. Everyone is familiar with this analogy. Imagine a stretched sheet with a heavy mass on it. The sheet dips. Objects near the dip travels towards the dip. We look for massive dips in the fabric of space. Put two identical clocks near the dip and one far away, and the deeper clock ticks slower relative to the distant one. This is gravitational time dilation. Gravity lets you buy time by parking near massive objects, instead of accelerating to extreme speeds. A similar equation describes the time dilation in these dips. If you were close enough to the central mass and looked outwards, the universe would evolve over years per second and accelerate into a blur of light and heat. Gravity-based time dilation has vastly different engineering trades. To truly outrun the present, we move to the giants, supermassive black holes. Not just that, but they also have to be spinning very fast. Spinning black holes have a special property to allow objects to orbit closer without getting sucked in, called the innermost stable circular orbit, or ISCO. You can realistically find and orbit these black holes with a gap of 0.3 AU, closer than Mercury's orbital radius. And in this proximity, 1 second here would be 11 seconds on the outskirts. Here, we built what I call the Time Tower, a literal ladder stretching from the outskirt hubs down into the crushing slow time depths. Here, we harvest power by harvesting the plasma jets of the black hole, called the Blandford-Znayak extraction, to power our civilization. With the Time Tower in place and steady access to extreme time dilation secured, the next question is, how do you distribute people, tasks, and power across zones that literally live at different speeds of time? We leave our industry, our laboratories, and our frontiers into the outer skirt hubs, called the periphery, where time runs at its natural maximum speed. Why? Well, innovation is fueled by failure, and failure requires the universe to move fast. By being in the fast time zone, scientists can live through decades of experiments in what feels like months or years for the people below. If a scientist in a slow time vault spends an afternoon theorizing a better drive, she might emerge to find that a century of fast time engineers has already made her work obsolete. The periphery is our churn. It is the messy, energetic layer where we fail, learn, and rebuild at the speed of thought. But a civilization with only a periphery has no memory. It has no long-term soul, and so, we anchor the God Minds in the deep, crushing wells of the supermassive black hole. These are the governments parked at their ISCO, where leadership lives in stillness we can barely conceive. The God Minds exist to respond, manage society, and test policies quickly. To the minds in the vault, executing a terraforming project wouldn't take a century to finish. It would be a few-year plan to them. By outlasting the lives of their citizens, they become the only force capable of holding a galactic vision together. They are the persistent center of a species that is otherwise drifting apart. To experience millennia of external progress within a single lifespan, which lets them directly oversee, take responsibility, and solve long-term projects that would normally span multiple generations. Between the chaos of the frontier and the God Minds, we placed the maintenance layer. We surrender these regions to the machines. By placing them here, the machines have enough reach to both the periphery and the god minds, reducing resources and energy to both sides. A single decade of machine time is in the well that allows for a century of external maintenance. It is the civilization's automated heartbeat. All of this on paper sounds flawless, but a fundamental flaw cannot help but arise. Because god minds can think and live across thousands of years, they miss how grief hits quickly inside human lives. While those on the outskirts invent, rebel, then vanish within seasons, the government only sees what happened a long time ago. Rebellions appear short-lived and self-resolving because, to the slow sector, they are. What feels like a generation-defining event externally is a brief perturbation internally. This biases policy toward patience and inaction. The same flaw that many past societies had, such as the late Roman Empire. An accumulation of crises faster than the emotional and administrative time the governments could register. Exhausting resilience before policy changes could synchronize with reality. The difference now is that the administration thinks 10 times slower than the Roman Empire. Time is a civilization's most precious resource, and we've learned to bend it, compress it, and extend it in many ways that were once unimaginable. The human payoff is existential. We are choosing to let parts of our civilization literally experience less of the universe. But is that worth it? In the end, the individuals inside it are still human, and for the god minds at the bottom of the well, the view from the throne is surprisingly cold. You realize that time isn't just a resource to be bought. It is the glue that holds people together in the same moment. By peeling the glue away, you haven't conquered death. You've just successfully outlived everyone, outlived their thoughts, their demands. The god mind's job will be difficult, and it will require rapid thinkers to catch up. Having the responsibility to govern a society they witness, no matter how wise or patient. Longevity doesn't equal control. In bending time, they have exiled themselves from the very civilization they were meant to protect. And let me ask you, is that worth living?